We don't have room for you." Those words hit me like a slap across my face as I stood frozen in my son's kitchen. I wasn't supposed to hear them, but Amanda, my daughter-in-law, made sure I did. My heart raced wildly in my chest as I clutched my coffee mug with trembling hands. All around me, cheerful Christmas decorations mocked my pain. Red and green garlands hung from every doorway. A perfect Christmas tree twinkled in the corner. And there I stood, suddenly aware I wasn't wanted in this picture-perfect holiday. Amanda's eyes found mine across the kitchen, her practiced smile never reaching those cold blue eyes. "Oh, Eleanor, I didn't realize you were there." Her voice dripped with fake concern as she placed a manicured hand on my arm. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't a slip-up. This was the final move in her years-long game to push me out of my son's life. I said nothing. With as much dignity as I could gather, I gently closed the kitchen door behind me and collected my purse and coat from the entryway. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Not today. Not ever again. Ever been excluded from a family holiday? Comment below if you've heard those painful words that made you feel unwelcome in your own family. As I drove home through neighborhoods bright with Christmas lights, memories flooded back. The long nights working 2 jobs after my husband died, the way I'd scrimped and saved to put Michael through college, often going without so he could have what he needed. 20 years of sacrifice for my only child, and this was where we'd ended up. I remembered how eagerly I'd adjusted our family traditions when Michael married Amanda. I learned to make her favorite dishes instead of the recipes passed down through generations of my family. I changed when we exchanged gifts to fit her schedule. I even stopped hanging certain ornaments because Amanda thought they looked outdated. Looking back now, I could see the pattern so clearly. First, Amanda changed our traditions. Then she limited my visits. And now, this final act, complete exclusion from Christmas Day. The message couldn't be clearer. I no longer fit into their perfect family picture. My house felt emptier than usual as I hung my coat and set my purse down on the entry table. My own Christmas decorations seemed to mock me now. The stockings I'd hung hoping my grandchildren might visit. The extra chairs arranged around my dining table for a family that wouldn't be coming. I checked my phone to find a text from Michael. "Trying to work something out with Amanda. We'll call you later." My heart sank. He knew what was happening and still couldn't stand up to her. Still couldn't defend his own mother. The carefully wrapped presents for my son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren sat beneath my tree. I walked over and touched the one for Amanda, a silver picture frame I'd spent weeks searching for because I thought it would match her living room perfectly. What a fool I'd been. I replayed Amanda's words in my head. "We don't have room for you," said just loud enough for me to hear from the hallway. Said with such deliberate timing that I couldn't possibly miss it. Said to establish who controlled my son's home and family. When Michael finally called, his excuses were painful to hear. "Mom, it's just that we have limited space this year," he stammered. Limited space? In their 4-bedroom house where they regularly hosted Amanda's entire extended family? "I understand, Michael," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. "You have to do what works best for your family. I wouldn't make him choose. I wouldn't add to his guilt. That wasn't the kind of mother I was." My phone buzzed with a new message that made my eyebrows rise in surprise. Amanda was inviting me to join them Christmas Eve, but only for family photos. Not for dinner, not for gift opening, just for the pictures she'd post online to show what a wonderful, inclusive family they were. It didn't take long to understand what was happening. Amanda wanted me in the family photos for appearance's sake. She wanted to show her friends and followers that she was the perfect daughter-in-law who included everyone. But when the cameras were put away, I wasn't welcome at their table. I sat alone at my kitchen table, a physical ache spreading through my chest. For 30 years, Christmas had meant a house full of laughter and love. First with my husband and son, then with grandchildren added to the mix. Now there was just silence. I went to my wrapping station in the spare bedroom and finished preparing another batch of presents. Every gift was carefully wrapped in paper I knew each person would love, except Amanda's. Hers, I left unwrapped, sitting in its store bag on my closet shelf. A small act of rebellion that no one would ever see. Looking through photos from last Christmas, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. In every picture, I was positioned at the edge of the group, easy to crop out, already being erased even then, and I hadn't realized it. That evening, tears slid down my face as I baked my traditional Christmas cookies alone. The recipes were written in my mother's handwriting, stained from years of use. I wondered if these traditions would die with me now that Amanda had decided they weren't good enough for her perfect Christmas. How would you respond to a daughter-in-law who deliberately pushes you away? Share your thoughts. Christmas Eve morning arrived with heavy snow. I chose my outfit carefully, a deep green sweater that brought out the warmth in my eyes, black slacks, and the pearl earrings my husband had given me on our last Christmas together. I would face this photo shoot with dignity. Arriving at Michael and Amanda's home, I immediately noticed how every decoration was new and trendy. There were no handmade ornaments from Michael's childhood, no angel that had topped our tree for generations, nothing that spoke of family history or memory. Stand here, Eleanor. No, a little to the left, behind Michael's sister. Amanda directed the family photos like a movie scene, positioning me carefully on the far edge of every shot. I smiled through it all, determined not to give her the conflict she secretly craved. As soon as the photos were done, I noticed the subtle shift. Amanda checking her watch, Michael looking uncomfortable, the oven timer suddenly needing attention. Every signal telling me it was time to leave while dinner preparations continued without me. Grandma, aren't you staying for dinner? My youngest grandchild's innocent question hung in the air. I watched Amanda swoop in to explain that Grandma has other plans tonight, the lie falling easily from her lips. My granddaughter's confused face was almost my undoing. The drive home felt longer this time, my car the only one heading away from family gatherings. Through lit windows, I could see people laughing together, sharing meals, celebrating the connection that had been denied to me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and kept driving. My quiet house welcomed me back. I sat in my living room with only the Christmas tree lights on, staring at the unwrapped gift for Amanda. It sat there like a symbol of our broken relationship, unfinished, unacknowledged, unwanted. Before bed, I checked social media to find Amanda had already posted the family photos. "Perfect Christmas Eve with the whole family," her caption declared. I noticed how carefully I'd been positioned so I could be included in the wide shot, but easily cropped out for her favorite versions. Christmas morning brought a brief, obligatory call from Michael. I could hear the celebration in the background, children's excited voices, classic Christmas music, the sounds of paper tearing as gifts were opened. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. After hanging up, I discovered something that stole my breath. Looking through Amanda's previous posts, I found versions of our family photos from past gatherings where I'd been cropped out completely. It wasn't just this Christmas. She'd been erasing me for years. What would you do with a gift meant for someone who rejected you? Tell us in the comments. I moved through Christmas Day in a daze, going through motions that no longer held meaning. I prepared a small turkey breast instead of a whole bird. I set one place at my table instead of 8. I turned on Christmas music to fill the silence that threatened to swallow me. The unwrapped gift for Amanda kept drawing my eye throughout the day, but something had changed in how I saw it. It no longer represented rejection. It represented clarity. For the first time, I was seeing my relationship with my daughter-in-law for what it truly was. Text messages arrived throughout the day showing my grandchildren opening the presents I'd sent. "Thanks for the gifts," each message said. But there was no FaceTime call to watch them open packages. No invitation to stop by, even for a few minutes. My Christmas dinner, for one, was nothing like the feasts I'd prepared in past years. No special family recipes that took days to prepare. No table groaning under the weight of everyone's favorites. Just a simple meal that would leave me with too many leftovers. That evening, I found myself doing something I hadn't done in years. Writing in a journal. The words poured out of me, all the hurt and disappointment I'd been swallowing for so long. It felt like lancing a wound, painful but necessary. As I wrote, my eyes kept drifting to the door of my spare bedroom. It had become a storage room over the years, filled with family mementos that Amanda had deemed too old-fashioned for her home. Objects with history and meaning, banished to boxes and shelves. The next morning, I opened that door with purpose. boxes of photo albums, my mother-in-law's china that Amanda didn't want, Christmas ornaments deemed too homemade for her designer tree. Each item held memories that Amanda had tried to erase. Standing in that cluttered room, I realized how much of my identity had become wrapped up in being Michael's mother and my grandchildren's grandmother. Those roles were important, yes, but they couldn't be all that I was, especially now. When my friend Judy called to ask about my Christmas, I surprised myself by telling her the truth instead of making excuses for my family. They said they didn't have room for me, I admitted, the words still painful to say out loud. They said what? Judy's outrage was both comforting and validating. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel angry about my treatment instead of just sad. It was outrageous. It was wrong. And I didn't deserve it. A knock at my door the next afternoon surprised me. My neighbor Diane stood on my porch holding a plate of desserts. "Thought you might like some company and leftover pie," she said with the directness I'd always appreciated about her. Over coffee and pie, I found myself telling Diane the whole story. Unlike my other friends who responded with pitying looks, Diane nodded with understanding. "Some doors need to stay closed so better ones can open," she said simply. I learned that after my divorce. I showed Diane the unwrapped gift still sitting in my closet. Instead of thinking it was petty or silly, she nodded approvingly. "It's a symbol," she said, "of you finally seeing clearly, of you saying enough, even if it's just to yourself." The next day, my phone rang with Amanda's name on the screen. When I answered, her question was immediate. "Did you get me a gift this year? You always get me that nice bath set." Her voice trailed off expectantly. No mention of excluding me, just concern about her present. "The gift is here," I replied calmly. "I'm waiting for the right moment to give it to you." The slight pause before her response told me my answer had caught her off guard. Good. Let her wonder for once. After Amanda's call, Diane stopped by again. We ended up in the spare room, surveying the boxes and forgotten treasures. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "this could be something just for you. Not for storing their rejects. Something that's just Eleanor's." That night, I found myself researching room transformations online. Guest rooms, craft spaces, reading nooks, places created for joy rather than storage. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of excitement about something that had nothing to do with my role as mother or grandmother. Michael sent a generic Happy New Year text with no mention of Christmas. No acknowledgement of what had happened. No apology. Just a message he probably sent to everyone in his contact list. New Year's Eve arrived, and instead of spending it alone as I'd expected, I accepted Diane's invitation to a small gathering of neighbors. People who'd lived near me for years, but whom I'd never taken the time to know, because I was always so focused on family. Have you ever created something beautiful from rejection? I'd love to hear your story. I woke on New Year's Day with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The spare room wouldn't be a storage space for rejected memories anymore. It would be my space, my sanctuary, the physical manifestation of my new boundaries. That morning, I began removing items from the room with purpose. Some things I would keep and display proudly. Others I would give away to people who would value them. A few I would return to Michael to decide what mattered to him. Under years of accumulated boxes, I discovered my old art supplies from before my marriage. Sketching pencils and watercolors, untouched for decades. I'd been quite good once, before life and responsibilities had taken over. Sitting on the floor of the half-emptied room, I began sketching what the space could become. A comfortable chair by the window for reading. Shelves for books and meaningful objects. A small desk for writing or drawing. A space that reflected me. Not what others wanted me to be. "The thing about interests," Diane said when I showed her my sketches, "is that they're always waiting for you to come back to them. Like old friends." She helped me move the last heavy boxes, uncovering even more forgotten pieces of myself. The physical work of transforming the room was surprisingly satisfying. Painting the walls a soft blue-green that Amanda had once called too country for her modern aesthetic. The color made me happy. Reminded me of mornings at my grandmother's lake house. Michael called about some tax documents he needed. His voice was normal, casual, as if Christmas had gone exactly as planned. I answered his questions efficiently, politely, without offering more. The silence where my usual "I miss you" would go felt significant. Over the next few weeks, I maintained this new pattern, responding to Michael's messages promptly but briefly. No more long, one-sided conversations where I worked to maintain connection while he half-listened. No more emotional labor without reciprocation. As the room took shape, I deliberately chose elements Amanda had criticized over the years. The floral cushions she called old lady style. The brass lamp she thought was outdated. The handmade quilts she'd refused to display. While organizing a bookshelf, I discovered family photo albums Amanda had removed from Michael's home years ago. Pictures of his childhood, our early Christmases, his father who'd died too young, all deemed unsuitable for her perfect home. I decided these would have a place of honor in my new room. Each day, the room's transformation mirrored my own internal shift. As walls were painted and furniture arranged, my spine straightened. As meaningful objects found their proper places, so did my self-respect. One afternoon, I spent hours repainting an old wooden chair in bright yellow. With each brushstroke, I felt myself reclaiming something that had been slowly taken from me. My sense of having choices, of deserving beauty, of mattering even when not useful to others. My phone lit up with an unexpected call from my granddaughter. "Grandma, when are you coming over? I miss your cookies." The innocent question brought tears to my eyes, but also strengthened my resolve to create healthier relationships with all of them. I chatted happily with my granddaughter, making plans to take her for ice cream the following weekend. Just the two of us. I was learning I could maintain connections with the people I loved while still protecting myself from those who didn't value me. Shocked by what she built? Tag someone who needs to see this transformation. Diane continued bringing useful items for my project. A perfect side table she no longer needed, fabric samples for curtains, a beautiful plant to brighten the corner. Our friendship deepened through this shared creation. While sorting through kitchen boxes, I discovered handwritten recipe cards my mother-in-law had given me when I married Michael. These precious family recipes had been dismissed by Amanda as outdated cooking. I decided to frame several as art for my new walls. As I hung these recipes, I thought about the generations of women in my family who had faced disappointments and started over. My grandmother after being widowed young. My mother during the difficult war years. Their resilience lived in me too. A text arrived from Amanda. "We haven't seen you in a while. What have you been up to?" The fishing for information was obvious. She wasn't concerned about me. She was bothered by not knowing, by not controlling the narrative. I replied simply, "Just some projects around the house. Hope everyone is well." No details offered. No invitation extended. The 3 dots appeared showing she was typing, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, just a thumbs-up emoji. She didn't know how to handle this new version of me. By early February, my room was halfway complete. The walls gleamed in their new color. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with books I loved rather than ones I should read. The reading chair sat by the window, a hand-knit throw draped invitingly across it. I found myself hurrying through other tasks to get back to my project. Each element I added, a family photo rescued from storage, a piece of art I'd created, a memento from a happy time, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Through Diane, I learned about a community art class at the local center. I enrolled on impulse, something I wouldn't have done before. There I met other women my age, many with their own stories of reinvention after loss or disappointment. Over cups of too strong coffee after class, I shared parts of my Christmas story. Instead of pitying looks, I received knowing nods and gentle squeezes of my hand. "Mine was a Thanksgiving exile," one woman said. "Best thing that ever happened to me," though I didn't know it then. The next afternoon, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Michael stood on my porch, looking slightly uncomfortable. "I was in the neighborhood," he said, though his office was nowhere near my home. I invited him in, noticing how he glanced around as if seeing my house for the first time. He followed me to the kitchen, but stopped when he noticed the open door to my project room. "Mom, what are you doing in here?" he asked, staring at the half-transformed space, paint cans and fabric samples still scattered about. "Creating a space for myself," I answered simply, feeling a strange calm as I watched him take in the physical evidence of my transformation. His eyes lingered on the family photos I'd prominently displayed, many from before Amanda had entered our lives. "It looks really nice," he said awkwardly. Then, predictably, "Amanda has been talking about redoing our guest room. Maybe she'd like to see what you've done here, get some ideas." I smiled gently but firmly. "This space is just for me right now. Maybe when it's finished, I'll have a little gathering to show it off. But for now, it's my private project." The parallel to their Christmas exclusion hung unspoken between us. Michael's face showed the moment he made the connection. His eyes darted away from mine, a flush creeping up his neck. "About Christmas," he began, then faltered. It wasn't right how things." I saved him from his stammering. "We all make choices, Michael, about what we value and who we include. I'm making different choices now, too." I kept my voice kind but firm. This wasn't about punishment, but about healthy boundaries. He looked up, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in years. "Would you like to come to dinner next weekend?" he asked suddenly. "The kids have been asking about you." "I'd like that," I replied, "but I need to know I'll be treated with respect in your home. By everyone." I held his gaze steadily, letting him know this wasn't negotiable. In the days before the dinner, I found myself approaching my closet with new eyes. Instead of choosing something Amanda would approve of, I selected a vibrant blue top that matched my new room and my new outlook. I was done dimming my colors to please others. Arriving at Michael and Amanda's home that evening felt different. I wasn't arriving as a supplicant, grateful for inclusion. I was arriving as myself, a whole person with value beyond my role in their family. Amanda's eyes widened slightly when she opened the door. Whether it was my outfit or the new confidence in my posture, something had clearly caught her off guard. "Eleanor, you look different," she managed, her usual poise slipping just a bit. Throughout dinner, Amanda tried her usual tactics. Subtle digs disguised as concern, questions designed to highlight her superiority, but they slid off me like water from a duck's back. I answered pleasantly but briefly, redirecting conversations toward my grandchildren. When Amanda inevitably asked about what had been keeping me so busy lately, I smiled and mentioned my creative project, without elaboration. The brief response clearly frustrated her, and I noticed Michael hiding a smile behind his napkin. I left after dessert, declining the offer to stay longer. In the past, I would have sat there until dismissed, grateful for any crumbs of family time. Now I thanked them for dinner, hugged my grandchildren, and departed on my own terms. At home, I returned to my room project with renewed energy. The dinner had confirmed what I already knew. I was on the right path. Creating boundaries wasn't selfish. It was necessary for genuine relationships. The final touches to my room became more personal, more daring. A wall arrangement of my own amateur paintings. Wind chimes by the window that Amanda would have called noisy trinkets. A shelf of objects with no purpose but to make me smile. A few days later, a small box arrived from Michael, a dessert from my favorite bakery. No note, just the sweet gesture that told me he was thinking about our conversation, about choices and consequences and new beginnings. That evening, another call from Amanda appeared on my phone. "Michael mentioned your room project," she said without preamble. "I'd love to see it sometime. Maybe get some ideas for our guest room redesign." "It's not quite ready for visitors," I replied calmly. "It's still very much in progress." Her frustrated sigh was audible through the phone. Amanda had always hated not having immediate access to anything that sparked her interest. By early March, the major elements of my room transformation were complete. What had started as a spare room filled with rejected memories had become a bright, personal space that reflected my tastes, interests, and history. I invited Diane and my new friends from art class for a small dinner party to celebrate the room's completion. We ate at the table I'd refinished myself, surrounded by walls that held both my past and my future. As we shared dessert, I found myself getting emotional. 6 weeks ago, I felt unwanted and forgotten, I told them. Now I realize that rejection just gave me the push I needed to create something beautiful. Not just this room, but this version of myself. The next day, a message arrived from Amanda about Christmas plans. In March, "We're trying to coordinate family schedules early this year," she wrote. "We'd love to have you join us for the full celebration." The about face was so transparent I almost laughed out loud. I considered my response carefully. "Thank you for thinking of me," I wrote back. "I'm making some new traditions this year, but I'll keep you posted." No commitment. No eager gratitude for being included. Just a calm acknowledgement that I had options. In the following weeks, I began thinking about my own holiday plans. Maybe a small gathering in my new space. Maybe a volunteer shift at the community center followed by dinner with my new friends. Maybe even a short trip to somewhere I'd always wanted to see. Michael's calls became more frequent as he sensed the shift in our relationship. Sometimes he'd mention Amanda's increasing curiosity about my activities. Sometimes he'd reminisce about holidays when he was young. Always, there was an undertone of worry about what had changed. I maintained my warmth with Michael while being clear about my new boundaries with Amanda. "I'll always be your mother," I told him during one call. "But I get to decide how I'm treated and who has access to my time and energy." By April, I had finalized plans for a small spring gathering in my transformed space. Friends from art class, neighbors who'd become dear to me, even a few family members who'd reached out after learning about Christmas, all would be welcome in my home. I found myself wrapping a small gift one evening, a beautiful journal I'd seen that reminded me of Amanda. Not the original silver frame that still sat unwrapped, but something new. Something that acknowledged our relationship had changed, but could perhaps evolve into something healthier. As spring progressed, I brought out decorations that had been packed away for years, items that celebrated the season with colors and symbols that made me happy, regardless of current trends or Amanda's opinions about what was stylish. The week before my gathering, Amanda's messages became increasingly frequent and transparent. "Just checking in, wondering what you're up to. The kids were asking about you." Each one a thinly veiled attempt to secure an invitation to see my completed project. I continued responding politely but briefly. Not rude, never rude. That wasn't who I wanted to be. But no longer bending over backward to accommodate or placate. No longer working harder at relationships than the other person. Would you have closed your door forever or left it slightly open? Comment and share your wisdom. 2 days before my planned gathering, the doorbell rang. Amanda stood on my porch, a store-bought cake in her hands. "I was just in the neighborhood," she said. The same excuse Michael had used weeks earlier. "Thought I'd drop by." I invited her into the living room, offering coffee while keeping the door to my special room firmly closed. I could see her eyes darting toward it repeatedly as we engaged in surface-level conversation about the grandchildren and the weather. "Your home looks different somehow," Amanda commented, her gaze still drifting toward the closed door. "Have you been redecorating?" The question was casual, but her intent was obvious. She was dying to see what Michael had seen, what had changed in me. "Just making some changes that make me happy," I replied with a smile, not offering a tour or further explanation. Amanda shifted uncomfortably on the couch, unused to not getting what she wanted from me. Finally, she got to the real reason for her visit. "We've missed having you around," she said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "The family doesn't feel complete without you." What she meant was, the family narrative she controlled didn't work if I wasn't playing my assigned role. "That's kind of you to say," I responded gently. "I've been focusing on building a life that feels complete to me too." Not accusatory, but clear. The boundary was firm, but not cruel. As Amanda prepared to leave, disappointment evident in her posture, she handed me an envelope. "We're having a spring dinner next weekend. We really hope you'll come." The invitation felt like a peace offering, though I knew it was also motivated by curiosity. "Thank you," I said, accepting the envelope. "I'll think about it." Not an immediate yes, as would have been my response in the past. Not an eager, grateful acceptance of any crumb of family inclusion. Just a thoughtful consideration of what I wanted. After she left, I continued preparations for my gathering. My home was filled with fresh flowers and meaningful objects. The table was set with my mother-in-law's china that Amanda had rejected. Music I loved played softly through the house. My special room, finally complete, was the heart of my plans. No longer a storage space for rejected memories, it had become a testament to self-respect. Family photos shared wall space with my own artwork. Books I loved filled the shelves. The reading chair welcomed me each morning for coffee and reflection. The evening of my gathering arrived, and with it a surprising call from Michael. "Mom, are you really not coming to our dinner next weekend?" The confusion in his voice was genuine. In the past, I would have immediately rearranged any plans to accommodate their invitation. "I have a commitment that day," I explained calmly. "I'm hosting my own gathering, tonight actually. You're welcome to stop by if you'd like to see what I've been working on these past few months." The invitation was sincere, though I wasn't sure he would accept. My guests arrived bearing small gifts and warm hugs. Diane proudly showed off the curtains she'd helped me select. My art class friends admired the paintings I'd dared to display. We filled my home with conversation and laughter, creating new memories in this transformed space. The contrast between this joyful gathering and last Christmas's painful exclusion wasn't lost on me. "We don't have room for you," had been the doorway to discovering I could create my own room, both literally and figuratively, filled with people who valued me. Midway through the evening, the doorbell rang once more. Michael stood on the porch, alone, looking both curious and slightly uncomfortable. "Is it okay if I come in?" he asked, as if suddenly uncertain of his welcome in my home. I welcomed him warmly, introducing him to my friends as my son. His eyes widened slightly as he took in the changes to my home, the unfamiliar faces, the evidence of a rich life he knew nothing about. After greeting everyone, Michael quietly asked to see the room he'd glimpsed during his last visit. With a sense of both pride and vulnerability, I opened the door to my special space, now fully realized in all its personal, meaningful glory. Shocked by what she built? Tag someone who needs to see this transformation. Michael stood silently in the doorway, taking in the transformation. His eyes moved from the family photos Amanda had banished, to my paintings on the wall, to the recipe cards framed like precious art. "Mom," he whispered, "this is beautiful." From a drawer in the small desk, I retrieved a package. Not the original unwrapped gift for Amanda, but something new. "This is for you," I said, handing him a leather-bound album filled with photos from his childhood, each one carefully preserved with handwritten memories. Michael's fingers traced the images of himself as a boy, of his father, of family moments Amanda had deemed unworthy of display. "I didn't realize," he began, then stopped, emotion making his voice unsteady. "I didn't realize how much we lost." "Nothing is ever truly lost," I told him gently, "if we choose to remember it, to honor it. I'm not angry anymore, Michael. I've found my way to something better than resentment." The forgiveness was real, though it didn't erase my new boundaries. Later that evening, his phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from Amanda, wondering where he was. I watched as he silenced it without responding immediately, a small act of independence I wouldn't have witnessed months ago. As my gathering wound down and guests departed with warm hugs, I found myself sitting in my special room, looking at the space I'd created from rejection. The irony wasn't lost on me. Amanda's "we don't have room for you" had led to the most beautiful room in my home. The morning after my gathering, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains of my transformed room. For the first time in months, I felt no lingering sadness about Christmas. That chapter had closed, making room for new pages. That afternoon, my doorbell rang yet again. Amanda stood there, tension visible in every line of her body. "Michael came here last night," she said without preamble. "He said you've created something amazing. I want to see it." I paused, considering this moment of truth. Did I exclude her as she had excluded me? Did I savor the power to say no? Or did I rise above that impulse and choose a different path? "Come in," I said finally, opening my door wider. We walked through my home to the special room, now filled with morning light. I opened the door and stepped back, allowing her to enter this space that represented my journey. Amanda stepped inside, her eyes widening as she took in every detail. The family history she'd tried to erase. The personal touches she'd dismissed as outdated. the evidence of a rich inner life she'd never bothered to know. "This is what came from not having room for me," I said quietly, without accusation. "Sometimes closed doors lead to open windows, or even better rooms than the ones we were trying to enter." Amanda's face showed a complicated mix of emotions: envy, regret, perhaps even a grudging respect. "The kids would love this room," she said finally, typical of her to focus on what she could still access rather than what she'd lost. "The grandchildren are always welcome here," I replied carefully. "As are you, if you come with respect and kindness. But this space, like my time and energy, is no longer available without conditions." She nodded slowly, understanding the new terms of our relationship. Some consequences couldn't be undone with a simple apology or invitation. Some shifts were permanent, like the transformation of both my spare room and myself. In the days that followed, I found myself reflecting on how rejection had led to unexpected freedom. The painful words, "We don't have room for you," had pushed me to create room for myself, in my home, in my life, in my heart. As I prepared for the new year ahead, I realized I'd come full circle. The Christmas that had begun with exclusion had ultimately led to a more authentic inclusion of my true self, my real preferences, my actual worth. On a quiet evening, I carefully placed the original unwrapped gift for Amanda in a memory box, not as a reminder of hurt, but as a marker of transformation. That silver frame had been meant to hold her carefully curated family images. My life now held something far more valuable: truth. Would you have closed your door forever or left it slightly open? Comment and share your wisdom.